There is perhaps no more important growing thing on earth than the tree. What other organism, by virtue of its mere existence, gives character and beauty to the land, stability, food, shelter, and even oxygen? As our population grows, more and more land is cleared for development, and the cost of that development also grows. At first glance, it seems faster and cheaper to simply bulldoze the land flat and landscape later. But is it? Here in the Pacific Northwest, trees play a crucial role in both residential and business developments.
Surprisingly, the cost of preserving trees can be negligible if it's carried out at the design phase of a project. It becomes costly once you start to implement preservation after the design phase and construction has started.
Look at this typical housing development. Now, look at this one. Which has more character, more livability, more intrinsic value? This video is going to show you that, with pre-planning, the trees on a construction site can be preserved in a manner that enhances the overall quality, appearance, and value of the development. A good example of this kind of development is Village Wiestoria in Bend, Oregon.
Our main concern being over how to protect the wonderful asset that this particular property has, and that is wonderful stand and grows of great, wonderful trees that we'd like to be sure that we do everything we can to enhance our development by protecting those trees.
Most developers have good intentions and think they're doing all they can to protect trees. The preservation of trees takes more than good intentions. It takes pre-planning, protection during construction activities, and post-construction monitoring and maintenance.
We need to be conscious of the fact that our development techniques in the past have been to sprawl out beyond city limits and to take the raw, cheap land and to put housing development after housing development on it. And I think our project in particular will be monumental in as much as it'll take an infill site within an urban growth boundary and show how we can have better densities and livability through the creation of community.
Kevin Ray is a developer that was studying new urbanism and was really thinking out of the box in terms of what kind of development we've had in Bend up to this point. And he was requesting a lot of variances to lot coverage, lot size, building setbacks, and the trade-off was to protect and enhance the community, making it a more livable community by providing greater amount of open space and common area, and has actually set new ground for other developers to come in and do a similar types of projects.
Successful planning requires collaboration between planners, landscape architects, engineers, surveyors, consulting arborists, developers, and local authorities. It's essential that collaboration begins early and continues throughout the project. As it's said, a good leader knows he or she does not have the experience in all that is essential for the project to be successful. A good leader, therefore, surrounds himself with the people who are experts in the fields that are necessary for success. An excellent source of help is a local arborist. When made a part of the development team in the early phases of the project, their knowledge can be invaluable to tree preservation efforts.
If a question comes up, you've got somebody there that can answer it quickly so the construction can keep on moving quickly. So you start saving money there. There's not much you can do to repair damage, but there's a lot you can do to keep damage from happening. We're doing all the tree work before they do the groundwork so that we aren't going over the same thing twice. Cuts down on the tree work expense, and also will make it look a lot nicer as they're building and developing. And by having your trees pruned up in advance of the building, it begins to look like a nice lot before you even start in on the building.
To effectively incorporate a development into the existing landscape, it is crucial to evaluate the site's natural resources. The data collected can answer the questions of which trees to protect and how to best protect them, as well as which trees to remove or transplant. The data can also suggest areas that would be best suited for open space enhancement and the planting of additional trees.
Not all trees can or should be preserved. Tree preservation efforts are best focused on preserving trees that are and have the potential of becoming assets to the site and the community. Trees that are of poor health or poor structure are best removed early in the process, minimizing the cost.
It's been a fairly easy transition from taking the land plan and establishing architectural design concepts, and those have to be also bounced off of the marketing individuals and the real estate people, because in the end this has to be a sellable product. At that point we take into account the topography and the tree locations and develop each site accordingly.
In my experience, which is over 25 years in the Bend real estate market, I have found the trees and the park-like settings are absolutely invaluable for resale and initial sales. I think that people buy homes, generally speaking, if the neighborhood reminds them of home. Certainly a cleared-off parcel of land holds no appeal to anyone.
The most important concept to understand is that trees are an asset to the site. As such, they should be given as much consideration as the infrastructure that's going to be put in place as part of construction.
Once it has been decided that a tree or group of trees is to be preserved, a protection plan is developed. The protection plan shows the location of the trees to be protected and includes the specifications for protection devices and work procedures. The tree protection plan is a very important preservation tool. Before any construction activities take place, it is essential that everyone who is involved in the project understand the importance of the protected trees to the overall development, the impact of construction activities on the health of trees in general, and why it is important to stick to the protection plan. That means the protection measures should be put in place prior to any construction activities occurring on the site and be maintained throughout the project. The protection measures specified not only depend on the tree species and the tree's condition, but also depend on the existing environmental features of the site, local building requirements, and the planned construction activities.
On this particular site, there are two large ponderosa pines. There's going to be a home in between those two because there has been some construction activity done without any type of protection mechanism put in place. There's concern over these trees and their health and how long they actually will live. The root system of both trees have been substantially removed, both the small fine feeder roots and the structural roots, altering the tree's mechanism of anchoring and receiving water and nutrients. Their long-term survival has been lessened and hazard potential heightened, thus the trees had to be removed.
It is always best for the long-term health, stability, and survival of trees to minimize damage to their root system. It's important to install a physical barrier around the tree, creating a no-disturbance area. This protection zone is to stop any construction activity, stockpiling, dumping, equipment passage or storage, grading, or excavation from occurring within the calculated protection zone. Lack of activity in this area prevents compaction or removal of soil, severing and removal of roots, and accidental wounding of the tree's limbs and trunk. At a minimum, the drip line, or where the outermost branches of the tree reach, is an indicator that can be used to determine this zone. Physical barriers need to be highly visible. Depending on the construction activities and circumstances, orange mesh fence with power-driven steel poles, sediment and erosion control fencing with flagging, or chain link fence may be an option. Virtually any kind of barrier can be used, the key being that it is highly visible. Another thing to remember is that when faced with no other choice but to cut roots, cut them cleanly and evenly. Ripping through a root with a backhoe or trencher puts so much stress on the tree that its chances of survival are greatly diminished. The bottom line is that trees and shrubs naturally present in a proposed development site can do a great deal to enhance the site. Using the existing terrain as a part of the development plan is a very effective way to not only add value to the development, but uniqueness as well.
Building amongst mature, well-preserved trees gives one an instant sense of place. And this is a benefit not only to the community as a whole, but gives post-construction landscaping a sense of history that adds great value.
We came over for Portland, made 5 trips, and we visited a lot of areas. And it was this space and the trees that we always came back to. You can't plant trees and have this kind of experience.
I did look at other areas that do not have trees, the large trees that we have, and I decided that this area is much more livable, much more enjoyable with the trees.
I think with all the subdivisions today that everything seems to be mowed down to make it easier to build. And we've lost a lot of our natural surroundings. My grandson, who's 9 years old, had his little buddies over, and they were out here playing. I have not seen children climb a tree in a long, long time.
The preservation of trees takes more than good intentions. It takes pre-planning, protection during construction activities, and post-construction monitoring and maintenance. If your development doesn't look like every other development, you've got a better product to sell. And if it has natural landscaping and mature trees, you can get a better price.
A development that successfully saves and preserves native high-quality trees is a showcase for the developer, the contractor, the community, and the neighborhood as a whole. It shows a commitment by all parties involved to preserving native species.
Actually, as far as I'm concerned, it really is a responsibility of the architect or the land planner to be able to maintain and keep as many of the existing trees, ponderosa pines, particularly inside the urban growth boundary.
I didn't know it when I moved in, but I found that the trees are quite a benefit as far as energy savings. For instance, today as we stand here, it's about 96 degrees out here, and I just looked in the home and it's 76.
It's a lot more labor intense to work around the trees as far as the labor end of it. To still have the trees standing at the end is worth the labor.
To keep those groves of trees intact enhances the city, preserves the character of our city, and provides those urban green spaces that are going to become more and more important as the city continues to grow.
I'd always look for a house with trees, and the bigger the better, because the shade is really beneficial and they're great looking.
When I look out my window, I see branches and I see greenery and I see the natural tree trunk. And you don't feel your world so plastic.
We continue to get accolades. We've won the National Arbor Days Foundation Awards for working with trees. We won the Governor's Livability Award. We won a local Board of Realtors Best New Community Award. Building a village like this, following the tree preservation plan or incorporating trees has way more benefits than a fiscal one. It gives you the benefit of knowing that you were a good developer in a fiscal sense, but you also made a difference in your community, and that makes this whole process worthwhile.